time, the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does, and great to have you with us on this Friday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Very busy show today. Tino Pattigno, because if it's a Friday, it's a NASCAR Friday. The Brickyard 400 coming up. Get some thoughts with Tino on that. Also the championship round of their in-season playoffs. See who he likes there. We'll also be visited by our friend Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder. Only having him on for one segment today because we got a lot going on in the show. Derek Stevens will be here. He is the founder, the owner of Circa Resorts and Casino. I had a long conversation with him yesterday. You'll hear just a portion of that today. The rest of it will be on our weekend edition, carried on many of these same affiliates. If not, check your local listings for time and schedule. There was a trade in baseball that we will get to coming up. The trade deadline season has officially started. We'll talk about that coming up in 10 minutes as well. But we got to start out with a story that broke right after we had put the show to bed yesterday, because, of course, everything breaks right after we put the show to bed, which is why I'm pushing so hard to do a live version of this show every day, because we would have been able to cover this and give it its proper due yesterday. And this one hits me hard. Sam Yarnell, who's with us today. And it won't probably hit you as hard because you're a little younger, but everybody knows the cultural significance of Hulk Hogan. And I come at this as a guy who's about to turn 48 years old in September. And I come at it from, I grew up in a time where we had 36 channels on a cable box that was like this big, and you had to flip up the different levels to get to the channel that you wanted, and you press the button, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And I grew up in a time where you watched wrestling every Saturday morning. Even though it had been taped weeks in advance, you had no idea what was going to happen because we didn't have this thing called the internet. And we didn't have this ability to go deep into the lives of the people that we idolized. And I grew up a Hulkamaniac. I had bought in from a very young age. I grew up in the shadow of the WWF headquarters, then the WWF, in East Haven, Connecticut. WWF was based in Stamford. They always had events in New Haven at the New Haven Coliseum. So I grew up on WWF. And Hulk Hogan was, I idolized the guy. Everybody did. He was our Captain America of wrestling. And I remember crying when he lost to the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania in Toronto. I remember watching his WrestleMania farewell when he fought against The Rock 20-something years ago, again in Toronto, and lost in one of the epic WrestleMania matches. And being angry when he turned heel, when he went to WCW, and following his career with, no matter what you did, you followed what Hulk Hogan was doing because he was the North Star for wrestling. And as you get older and you start to realize that it's scripted and it's not real, and these are stories that are drawn up in a back room somewhere, and these guys are just playing a role. And as you start to find out who somebody like Hulk Hogan is, as Terry Bollea, Hogan Knows Best, the family stuff that started to come in, the racist comments that were eventually attributed to him, and everything else, the Gawker stuff, the sex tape. All of a sudden, as you get older, the walls start to come down around the hero you once knew. So I'm conflicted because on one hand, I was sad yesterday. I shed some tears yesterday watching old Hulk Hogan footage because that was the Hulk Hogan I knew and grew up with. And then as you get older, in the second half of my life so far, you find out this person is somebody completely different. And then he went down the road of politics and started supporting things that I don't necessarily support. And what you're left with is a very complicated picture, a very complicated postmortem on somebody that you idolized as a kid and not so much as an adult. It's been very difficult to sort of process those emotions because it is once again an example, Sam, of we always think we know, growing up and all these things, we think we know who these people are. professional athletes. Brett Favre was a great example of this. One of the first examples as a professional sportscaster that I endured was Brett Favre. Everybody loved Brett Favre, the gunslinger and gregarious and happy on the field. And then all of a sudden you start to learn more about Brett Favre and some of the demons in his life and things going on with massage therapists when he's with the Jets. And you start to realize that all we have are little peepholes into the lives of the professional athletes we cover, the people we love, the people we worship, the people we idolize, whatever it may be. And Hulk Hogan is the embodiment of that. One person when you're growing up and you don't have the ability to sort of fact check and find out who somebody is behind the scenes, and somebody completely different when we got into the era of Gawker and the era of TMZ and all these different things where all these walls came down. So it was very difficult for me to sort of decompress and deconstruct his passing yesterday, Sam. I did a TikTok on it, which has gotten quite a few views, and that was my honest emotion at the time. But I've had about 24 hours to process his passing now, and that's sort of where I am with it.
So I think that like the most important thing for me, obviously not having grown up watching the guy, but seeing all the rhetoric that's come out in the hours since he died, in the days since he died, is like, I think there's a very important theme or motif. Maybe I get those two things confused very frequently. In sports, in like entertainment, in life even, that is exactly what you're talking about. And it's that we need to separate the person from the character, or the human from the athlete, right? Not necessarily to say that they're not the same person or to dehumanize one of them, but that is to say you have every right to love Hulk Hogan and Hulk Mania and be a part of that and that culture that was. And meanwhile, the actual human being at the center of it, you don't need to agree with everything that person thinks or says or whatever the case may be. I think that's what's part of what makes sports and growing up watching sports and idolizing athletes so important and so unique in American culture.
I think it's so difficult. And I think it's so, and I think Aaron Rodgers is sort of the modern day embodiment of this. Like, how do you, no, really, admire his talent. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks of our generation. But how do you take that and put it alongside the personal and the behind the scenes aspect of it? It's a lot to process. We're coming back. All right, let's take it to segment 2 on this Friday edition of SportsWrap. 10 minutes from now, Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder. I want to know what he thinks. He's a big wrestling guy. Get his thoughts on Hulk Hogan's passing. And coming from a member of the black community, how he processes it. Because Hulk Hogan said some terrible things, racist things, at one point that, you know, he's since apologized for, but I don't know how you ever put that genie back in the bottle. So I'm curious to get his thoughts on the passing of Hulk Hogan and how he sort of looks at it as well. Sam Yarnell, we had a deal in Major League Baseball. Josh Naylor is on the move from the Arizona Diamondbacks to the Seattle Mariners. And the Mariners didn't really give up much to get him. And this is, let me look at it from both sides. One, this is, again, quintessential Seattle Mariners trade deadline sort of stuff. This is the sort of move they make. That middle tier, that middle of the road guy. Hey, we're taking a run at it. You know, that's sort of what you're getting here from the Seattle Mariners. See? We didn't stand pat at the trade deadline. We're trying to make the playoffs. And for Arizona, we were all asking, will they be sellers at the deadline? I think they're still kind of playing it in the middle. When you trade away Suarez, then I might buy into the idea that you really are in sell mode. Josh Naylor doesn't necessarily do that for me, Sam. But I want to know what you thought of the trade and what it signals for both sides.
Yeah, so I disagree with you from a Mariners perspective. I think this to me is kind of like the pinhole that opens the floodgates for the Seattle Mariners. And I think this is a great move in Josh Naylor. You're filling a void in terms of that Mariners lineup. You've got Josh Naylor, a guy who can play first base well. He can DH, and I think he has capability at other positions. Not that he plays them regularly, but this is a guy who's got postseason experience. This is a guy in Josh Naylor who has had success in multiple cities. He was successful in Cleveland to a degree, more successful in Arizona, obviously. So I like the move for Seattle. And a bat that protects Julio Rodriguez in that lineup, a bat that protects Cal Raleigh in that lineup. You finally got your big three, because Randy Arozarena, as well as he's been playing, doesn't cut it to be one of those big three bats in a postseason lineup. Now you've got that if you're the Seattle Mariners. So I like the move. And Jason reports after the trade that there are ongoing talks between these two franchises on a potential Eugenio Suarez move. That was Thursday night. Then Friday morning reports come out that the Yankees don't like the asking price from the Diamondbacks on Eugenio Suarez, and they're most likely out on him. I don't know, Jason. I think this could be the first of multiple trades we see between the Mariners and Diamondbacks before next week's deadline.
Well, let me say this. If the Yankees give up on Spencer Jones, when you look at what the guy has done this year, you're out of your mind. I mean, he's hitting like 317. He's got 19 home runs or something like that. And
he's got 28 home runs across all levels of minor league baseball. He leads minor league baseball in home runs this year.
He's stolen 16 bases. I mean, you can't ask for more out of Spencer Jones. But the question I ask is, if you're the Yankees, you might be saying you're not giving up Spencer Jones, right? You might be making that argument that you're not giving up Spencer Jones. But if you're not bringing him up to the majors because you're worried he might get exposed and hurt his value, and you're keeping him at AAA where he's padding those huge numbers and potentially elevating his value, are you really not selling on Spencer Jones? That's the one thing that I'm not necessarily convinced of, Sam. I'm not convinced that the Yankees aren't trading away Spencer Jones.
Jason, it is the New York Yankees. It is what they do. They take their top prospects and they trade them away for the top available pieces at the trade deadline, and they somehow go on to win a World Series because of it. It's happened like 6 times in the last 40 years. This is, like, to me, quintessentially what the Yankees need to do to put themselves back in the driver's seat of that division, because they've quite frankly lost it. It's the Toronto Blue Jays at this point. There's no team, well, maybe. There are a few teams hotter in baseball than the Toronto Blue Jays right now over the course of the last month. So if the Yankees want to get back in that driver's seat for
Yankees
the AL
aren't winning
East
a World Series, Sam. Sam, I'm going to say it right now. The Yankees are not winning a World Series. They are a fundamentally flawed baseball team. They don't run the bases well. They don't play defense well. Those are things that matter in the postseasons when games are being played on the margins. I do not have the confidence. Their bullpen is still in shambles. Jonathan Loaisiga can't get anybody out. The Yankees are not winning a World Series. This is not a World Series team. It's a playoff team. It might be a wild card playoff team. This is not a World Series team. I'm sorry. It's not. As currently constructed. And I got news for you. Even a deal for Suarez doesn't change that for me, because there is something fundamentally wrong in the way the team plays baseball. When you've got Aaron Boone going after the team makes 4 errors in a game against the Blue Jays, going on in the postgame and saying, we're a good defensive team. I can't take you seriously as a manager of a Major League Baseball team. I can't do it. Can't do it.
You know, the Suarez thing is interesting.
Now you make me look like Frank from Barstool. Jesus.
No, trust me. You're not. Once you start chewing on the glasses and then you'll be Frank from Barstool. Shout out to Frank, by the way. Awesome walk just came out. One of the Frank walks with our friend Diana Rossini. Go check it out. Shout out to Frank. But the Suarez World Series thing is very interesting. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not going to go as far as to say that it's the same lineup that took them to the World Series last year. But it's
took
not
them, but they didn't
different.
win, Sam. But I don't care if you get there. The Yankees aren't supposed to be built to get to the World Series. You're supposed to be built to win the World Series.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in that regard.
in the World Series.
There's no, because Jason, as I said on the show earlier this week, I picked the Yankees as the third team in the American League right now, and I don't think there's any American League team that could beat any National League contender.
Not even Detroit?
No.
When you're going to get Tariq Skubal potentially 3 times in a 7-game series?
Yeah, but
really?
You're going to get Casey Mize and Reese Olson 4 times.
You only got to win one of those, though, if you got Skubal the other 3. I'm just saying. It's math. Robert Littal will join us on the other side. Don't go anywhere. All right, this Friday edition of Sports Wrap continues, and if it is a Friday, it can only mean one thing. We're joined by our friend Robert Littal. On location. Don't jump! He's in San Diego. Can I say where you are? Can I say why? All right, he's in San Diego for Comic-Con. So, what's the big star of Comic-Con this year? Like, what's the thing that everybody's talking about?
You know, it's not because a lot of the DC and the Marvel movies have already kind of happened. So it's just your regular Comic-Con fans. Let me tell you something. You know, there's never an unhappy couple at Comic-Con. You have to be dedicated to do these type of things.
All right, fair enough. Are you going to go see the new Fantastic Four movie this weekend or what?
I actually saw an early screening of the Fantastic Four movie earlier this week. Not too shabby, not too bad.
All right.
I will say this. No,
my husband's very much looking forward to it, and he's a huge Pedro Pascal fan.
Okay.
And I saw Superman on opening night a couple weeks ago, which I was kind of meh about, but all right. So wait, you were going to say something about Pedro Pascal?
Now I don't want to offend your husband.
No, it's all right.
It's a little oversaturated. Let's say it's been a lot of Pedro Pascal, and I didn't quite feel him as Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards, but I can be a little particular about these things. You've seen my wall.
Yeah, I love The Last of Us, so I'm a huge Pedro Pascal guy. All right, let's talk about Hulk Hogan passing, because it hit me really hard. I grew up a Hulkamaniac, but as I explained at the top of the show today, you got to separate the guy that we idolized and worshipped growing up versus the guy that we learned about as an adult when we were of a certain age to process those things. And we have things like TMZ and then Gawker and videos that leak online and sex videos and racist comments and all these things. As somebody who appreciates wrestling and obviously comes from a generation similar to mine, how are you processing the passing of Hulk Hogan?
It's funny because you always hear the phrase, never meet your heroes. And wrestling, especially for younger people, they are kind of larger than life heroes, like superheroes that you could actually see in real time. And, Hulk Hogan was the biggest, quote unquote superhero that wrestling ever had. There would not be a professional wrestling as we know it today if there was not for Hulk Hogan. But then, like you said, then you carry the real
Terry
person.
Bollea,
and once you learn about the real person, it's a difficult thing to process, because how do you tell someone, this guy was the greatest professional wrestler of all time in regards to your childhood and what you thought about it and how it made you feel. And then especially as a black person like myself, the things that he said, about black people, some of the things that he's done, some of the political, affiliation. I'm one of the type of people that when it comes to death, I'm not going to mock it. I'm not going to make fun of it. I'm not going to take shots. I'm very much, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it, at all. But it does make you feel a certain type of way, because it's a push and pull type of situation. of his influence on you, but then knowing, at least what we know from a superficial level, because, I mean, he said things that he said, how that makes you feel as an individual, especially as an adult.
What is his legacy? Is it really two legacies? Is it him as the wrestler and then really? And again, we grew up in a time watching him where there was no internet, there was no breaking down that third wall. Like Hulk Hogan couldn't exist in today's wrestling world. Like he couldn't. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't have succeeded. As I heard somebody point out yesterday, Dave Meltzer, I think, said it when I saw him in an interview, where he's like, he was at the perfect time, the perfect place, the perfect person for what wrestling needed at that time. But I don't think he could have existed in today's wrestling world.
No, it's definitely a different, age. And I mean, that's why he kind of aged out of it in the beginning. And then he kind of made with the NWO, that was a smooth transition that nobody thought was happening. I think one of the sad things about death is a lot of times, especially with celebrities die, your worst moments are also amplified along with your best. And it's not like you can defend yourself because you're not here anymore. We saw it, we've seen it with Kobe Bryant, we've seen it with, others. There's always going to be a subsection of individuals that when you die, if you did something within your lifetime that offended them or that people are upset about, they're going to, mention it. When Bill Cosby dies, there's going to be some mention of certain things. When Trump, passes, it's always going to be, like that. I'm not a fan of it. I will be perfectly honest with you because, I mean, they passed away. I mean, taking your shots now, what is it gonna, what is it gonna do? And I always try to think about it like this: no matter how terrible a person is, that person more than likely still was a father. Still had loved ones, still had friends, and it must be tough, for them, his kids, his ex-wife, his wife. The wrestlers that felt like he did help them to see some of the negativity that was on. And I know, like I said, when certain celebrities pass, like, do you even, like, when people were talking about Kobe, like, do you even think about his daughters? Do you even think about it? Do you have to say that tweet? Do you have to point out that Instagram? Because what if his daughter, comes across that and she's 12 years old or whatever? So it's complicated and it can't be ignored. I literally saw a couple of articles that just ripped him to shreds.
Oh, yeah.
Less than
there were some people
hours.
dancing. There were some people dancing on his grave yesterday. There's just no getting around it.
And I have to be honest, it didn't feel good to me. And I feel
and
like
from people that I
story,
respect, and it was from some people that I respect, which is what makes it all the more problematic.
Oh yeah, it's. I feel like there's definitely a time and place where you maybe can do that. Less than 24 hours after somebody passes away, it doesn't sit right with me no matter what anyone has done.
No, I feel the same way. In the last 45 seconds here, one match that embodies Hogan. I don't think it's Hogan versus Andre, by the way, because that wasn't a particularly great wrestling match. I actually think it might be Hogan Rock at WrestleMania 18. That one to me almost feels like more of the match.
I think that encompasses everything that was Hulk Hogan, the wrestler, as far as people having an appreciation and showing him that they appreciated what he had done, for the industry. Because he came in as a quote unquote, heel in that, and he left as the face. And I think at that moment he realized that, everything that I've been through, these fans who are adults now, a lot of them are adults now because they're, as like, we still remember you and we still, understand what you've done for the industry.
Robert Littal, enjoy Comic-Con. Thank you for coming on, my friend. We'll see you next week.
Okay, let me go put on a costume, like a grown man that I am.
All right, one last segment with Derek Stevens, who does a terrific job. If you have not had a chance to go over and check out Circa Resorts and Casinos, next time you're in Las Vegas, make sure to do it. If you're watching us in Kentucky, they got the new sports book over there. I errantly said Nashville before, and he corrected me on it. Gives us a few minutes here on the show. So one of the things we've talked about on this show is the proliferation of sports betting around the country, but also how it's impacting the sports world at large. We've seen these isolated cases of athletes that are getting rung up for being involved, whether it's proxy betting, whether it's weird prop bets that are raising the ire of people or being flagged. From your perspective and where you are, is it a bigger problem than we are led to believe, or are people in the media, maybe like me, blowing it out of proportion in terms of how big of a problem we think it is?
I would tell you that I think it's a bigger problem today than it was back when Nevada was the only place you could have sports betting. And here's the reason: it's because I think there's been enough history in the state of Nevada that I don't think some of the betting offers would have been made in Nevada if Nevada was still the only place out there. I find it preposterous. You're going to take a guy, let's just say the eighth man on the team, and you're going to put a prop up on whether or not he is going to make or miss a free throw or something like that. I know these fellas make a lot of money, but you don't do that. You don't put props up on on a potential, college kicker. There's certain things that defy logic. And I think but
we live in a world where you could practically bet on every play now. I mean, everything with live betting and all of this. I mean, it feels like you could bet on literally every play.
And I think it shows that things went too far. Now, I will tell you, I'm a big proponent of prop betting. I think prop betting is a good thing within sports betting. I'm obviously someone that believes sports betting is a good thing. I think sports betting is a good thing for leagues. I think it's good for team owners. I think it's good for players. I think it's good for players' associations. I think it's good for media. It's good for sponsors. It's good for fans. So I'm all in on sports betting. And I'm also all in on prop betting. But I think there's some reasonability here that comes into play. You cannot put a potentially vulnerable person and put a prop on this person. It's a little bit different if you put a prop on how many rushing yards will the starting running back go for in a given game. That's how many passing yards your quarterback's going to have. Those are a little bit different than whether the 8th or 10th man will miss a free throw. And I think that's where there was some disconnect, that there may have been some over aggressiveness on putting a prop bet up on everything. It just opened itself up to a potential problem. I tell you, Circa Sports would have never had a prop as crazy as some of these props where these guys got in trouble. Never. I would have never allowed them to put a prop like that. It's ludicrous.
What's the greatest danger to the house? What's the greatest danger right now in bringing, in beating the house? Is it AI? Because I had somebody a couple of years ago when I started to get into talking about sports betting saying, all these sports betting, all these books are going to be in trouble because of AI. It's a few years later. I still don't necessarily see that. But what's the greatest thing that keeps you up at night as somebody who owns a sports book?
Yeah, it's not AI. It's not. I mean, again, remember, we take risk when we post a number. The one thing Circa Sports does is we post the college football number. We're the first ones that do it. So at 11 a.m. every Sunday morning Pacific Coast time, we post every college football line. Most books kind of follow or copy off of that. When we post it, that's what our risk is. But after that, if there's an AI program or a very good handicapper, we fully understand that the markets are a lot smarter than we are, and you allow the market to really develop the number. When you try to build a strong number, it's like building a building. You have to have a good foundation. You have to have bets on both sides. Then you have to have good action on both sides, and you need smart people on both sides. And that's when you can kind of say, okay, I got a solid number. And that's the big thing that we want to do at Circa Sport. We want to put out a solid number. So I think we go through, price evaluation, price discovery very, very quickly. That's costly to us because we lose on those bets. But we think what we gain is that we get a respected number. So Now it's not AI because the market's going to set the number eventually for you anyway. As far as biggest risks, I would say, frankly, it's going to be tax rates. It's going to be if we have states that feel that sports betting is going to solve every budgetary problem a state may have. Well, eventually you're just going to drive people out to the offshore. And I think it's imperative that we try to make sure that it's easy enough for people to bet legally. We can't make it so burdensome for individuals to bet legally that they decide, oh, to hell with it, I'm going to bet illegally. And that's probably my biggest concern.
Derek Stevens is the owner, Circa Resorts and Casino. The next time you are in Las Vegas, go and check it out. Go check out their new sports book in Kentucky as well. Promise me, before NFL season begins, I want to get you back on so we can actually talk about some future bets and some lines and things like that, because I know you're a great guy to talk to. We got to do that. We got to do that before the season starts, all right?
Great. Good. Happy I'll take you up on that. Maybe I'll see you down here when you're signing up for one of our football contests.
I'd love to come down there, and I hope to see you when I do. Derek Stevens, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
We're coming back. We wrap it up with odds and ends about 10 minutes from now. Some thoughts on, what's going to be a contentious issue for the Raiders and somebody they let go of. We'll get into that. Also, a Caitlin Clark card for the ages and how much it sold for. You might have to pick up your jaw from the floor when we tell you. But let's talk some NASCAR, because if it's a Friday, it's a NASCAR Friday, and that means Tino Pattigno is here. SiriusXM NASCAR Betting Insider, our NASCAR Betting Insider. You can see him on Tubi on the weekends as well, and he hangs out with us on the show with the Brickyard 400 coming up this weekend. But before we talk about that, Tino, I think I've done that more than once with you, where I've called you Sam. You guys are buddies, so neither of you are going to be offended by me calling you the other. Before we get into that, who had Denny Hamlin over 3.5 wins this year on their scorecard?
Not many people, especially with him getting older. And I got another piece of information right about that. Breaking news as of today, he signs a multi-year contract extension to stay with Joe Gibbs Racing. So not only did Denny Hamlin increase his win total, he's getting closer to 60 wins, which is a landmark for a lot of drivers that have ever raced. Denny Hamlin will now continue to stack up wins, and with the pace he's on, maybe even win his first championship, which right now he's being known as the Dan Marino of NASCAR. He might have more chances to get it done with that contract extension.
Is he the greatest to never win a championship?
As of now, yes.
What has made him at 44 so successful? What has led this sort of renaissance that we've seen this season?
I think his ability to stay patient during a race, figure out what he needs to do in order to get more speed out of his car, or just understanding where they're at with some drivers may not be able to do that, right? That's the experience level. He's using his experience to benefit himself during a race, in which maybe if you're a young driver, you're trying to push too hard, be too aggressive. Denny Hamlin says, if I have a 5th place car, I'm making sure that I finish 5th or better. And then he puts himself in a good position to where he has a strong pit crew, a really smart crew chief on top of the box, where if it's towards the end of a race and he's inside the top 5, maybe they get him 1 or 2 positions on pit road. But it's Denny Hamlin that keeps them in that top 5 spot throughout a long green flag run, or even, through an overtime or something like that, which we saw earlier this year, him winning because of his pit crew. So it's a full team effort, and Denny Hamlin's played a strong role about building his own team. I think that all those components really make for a strong season that he's having thus far.
All right, talk about the Brickyard 400 this week. Kyle Larson won this race last year. Is this where we see the return of Kyle Larson? Because it feels like he's been gone for a while.
It feels like he has, and people are calling it the summer slump. Same thing with
Yeah.
William Byron a little bit. But the funny thing I wanted to know with that is the fact that he still has the most top tens out of all drivers this year, still has the most laps led of all drivers this year. So sure, maybe earlier in the season was when he was more dominant, but to me, he's still one of the best drivers in the sport from that standpoint. Dover, to me, would be a place that we would have had to sound the alarms if he didn't have a strong run, in which he did. He was running top 3 to top 5 all day, and that's what they were looking for at the end of that race. Now, I think we can see him win the Brickyard 400 like he did last year, but the funny thing with that was he only led 8 laps last year, which in comparison, Tyler Reddick led 40, Denny Hamlin led about 20 as well, Bubba Wallace even led 26 himself. So to me, I think we're looking at the Brickyard, understanding that this is going to be a long race. We can see Kyle Larson up there, but I think there's some other drivers as well that we need to keep an eye on.
Denny Hamlin is the favorite this week at plus 440, followed by Kyle Larson at 5-1. Ryan Blaney is 7-1, then Tyler Reddick at 10-1, along with Chase Elliott and William Byron. You mentioned Bubba Wallace there briefly, 16th, right near the line there, right on the line. A little separation between him and Ryan Preece, but probably not nearly enough for Bubba Wallace's liking.
Yeah, and I keep saying it, right? If you're in 15th or 16th, you need to win. I just feel like there's going to be new winners, whether it's this weekend at Indy, Daytona's another option, where that's the race to get into the playoffs, the final race before the cut line, those type of tracks where we will see strategy, we will see chaos, and we will see drivers do whatever they can to make it in. Brad Keselowski is a perfect example. Brad right now, he's having a terrible season. They've been increasing speed a little bit, but 27th in the playoffs. Well, Brad Keselowski was on the front row at Indy last year before he had to bring it down pit road and something happened where he wasn't able to win the race. So my point is, if you're Bubba Wallace, if you're Chris Busch or Alex Bowman, you got to try to do your best to win. I don't think stage points are going to matter anymore, but if Bubba is still trying to go that route, which is a strategy they've been having success on this season, he finished 5th in this race last year. Tyler Reddick, his teammate, finished 2nd. Combined, they led over 60 laps total. So I think this is a track where it benefits both of them to carry speed into it.
All right, give me your favorite bets here in the final minute.
For sure. Well, Ryan Blaney's one of them. He was the strongest on the long run last year. He races for Team Penske. Roger Penske owns this racetrack. Always got to look at the storylines there. Denny Hamlin, I do like, but I'd wait till after practice and qualifying. Make sure he's starting inside the top 5 or top 10. Toyota's only won twice in their 28 starts here, so that's something to keep in mind. And Chase Elliott, who had a really strong one at Dover last weekend, he's 10-1 to win this weekend. This would be one of my favorite drivers to keep an eye on. He had a strong run in this race last year. I think he's going to go out and win it.
I've kind of given up on Bubba. I want to see him win.
No.
I want to see him win, but it's like, I mean, it's been a long time since Bubba Wallace won a race, and you have to wonder at this point if a win is on the horizon for him. He's 40. I think he's 31 to 1.
Yep.
Kyle Busch is 40 to 1. Give me one driver further down the trough that could maybe pull off an upset real quick.
That'd be Brad Keselowski.
All right.
22 to 1 right now for him.
All right. There's the long shot from our friend Tino Pattigno. Thank you, my friend. Enjoy the race this weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
We're coming back with more Sports Wrap. Odds and Ends wraps it up next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for another week. I don't know where the week went, but it's gone. Sports Wrap weekends on many of these same affiliates. Every weekend, a 30-minute sort of recap of what we talked about. Sometimes you get original content as well. This weekend, my full conversation, you saw part of it earlier in the show, my full conversation with Derek Stevens, the founder, the CEO, the owner of Circa Resorts and Casino. Very interesting conversation about the state of gambling, sports betting, bettors and casino goers being punished in this new Trump GOP-led bill, and how some are trying to take out a component of it, this 10% thing, this thing that went from 90 to 100% to 90% in terms of being able to claim your losses on gambling losses. So a great conversation with Derek Stevens on this weekend's edition of SportsWrap. SportsWrap, the podcast version of SportsWrap with Jason Page, available Monday through Friday, every afternoon, early on. The audio version of this show, all your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, and more. Make sure to subscribe to that. The SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, where you can watch SportsWrap commercial-free Monday through Friday. And pro tip, it's usually available there before it's available anywhere else. Go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Go and check that out as well. All right, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Apparently the end for Christian Wilkins with the Las Vegas Raiders. He has been released by the team, the defensive tackle, released with the designation of terminated vested veteran, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. And this is kind of a complicated story. He's been recovering from a Jones fracture that he suffered in his left foot last year. But because of how he's treated the rehab process, the Raiders said, nope, we don't have to honor the rest of that contract. This is going to be ugly. This is going to wind up, in arbitration of some kind. The Raiders have voided the remaining $35 million of guaranteed money left on his contract. They did that on June 4th. It was believed he was going to need more surgery on his foot. He doesn't want to do that. As the ESPN story pointed out. Now the NFLPA has filed a grievance. I don't know who files a grievance because I didn't realize the NFLPA had anybody left working for them, Sam. But this Christian Wilkins story is certainly one that's going to play out over the course of time. He won't be on the football field, and he certainly won't be on it for the Raiders.
This is a weird one. I've had a few thoughts about this. So some clarity, because obviously everybody reporting on this issue has to maintain some level of relationship with both sides. Right. Your boy doesn't. Here's what happened. There's a video that was out on one of the Raiders, one of Christian Wilkins' Raiders former teammates, Instagram stories of Wilkins like dancing in the weight room earlier this week. That's kind of at the center of all of this. Because obviously the Jones fracture that you mentioned, and he's just dancing around in the weight room kind of haphazardly. That, among Raider Nation, as I understand it, seems to be a large talking point in this whole thing. My kind of radars went up when I heard that we've now got a dispute between the owners and the union, and a lot of it is centered around guaranteed money. Sounds awful familiar. Where have I heard that one before in the last 2 weeks? I think that there's something going on here that we will find out about in a long time from now, weeks, months, maybe a year. That's going on with the release of Christian Wilkins. This is a guy they signed to a 5-year, $100 and whatever million contract before last season. There's no reason. I don't care if the guy was playing hopscotch on his bad foot. There's no reason that you punt on a guy like that in that situation. They put out a weird statement. It didn't make a lot of sense. They made it seem like he was aiming towards retirement, which nobody thinks is the case. I think that there is something broader going on here with regard to the collusion case that we've been talking about between the NFLPA and the NFL owners for the last month.
It certainly could be. And we'll obviously see how it all plays out. All right.
Own a design studio.
All right. Let's talk about Caitlin Clark. In the world of autographed cards, the one-of-one logo man has always been the crown jewel. Well, now there is one to put alongside it. It's the logo woman. An autographed Caitlin Clark, flawless panini. One-of-one, instant rookie, royalty, WNBA flawless platinum Caitlin Clark card was pulled live on online shopping marketplace Whatnot just 3 weeks ago. It has sold for a record, a female sports card record, $660,000. Sam Yarnell. Talk about the winning lottery ticket. That is it. $660,000, Sam, for a Caitlin Clark one-of-one logo woman.
That's a great way to make a quick buck.
A lot of quick bucks. 660,000 of them.
Wonder what the profit margin is on that pack of cards.
We gotta go. I'm just gonna sit here and think about all the things I could do with $660,000 right now. Thanks, Robert Littal, Derek Stevens, Tino Pattigno, you, Sam. We'll see you all back here next week.